Welcome to Richard and Greg, a channel dedicated to discussion, debate and argument on a whole array of topics. Today Greg and I discuss His Royal Highness, the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, and how he has been consort to Her Majesty the Queen for over 70 years. And Greg and I discuss our experiences with His Royal Highness and his family. So let's go to that discussion. Welcome to Richard and Greg. It's Friday, the 9th of April, 2021, and the time is 19:23 GMT. Well, we've heard some sad news this afternoon. His Royal Highness, the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, husband to Her Majesty the Queen and Prince Consort, has passed away at the age of 99. And we thought it appropriate for Greg and I to perhaps share some knowledge and some experiences with the royal family and the Duke of Edinburgh. So without further ado, we'll go over to Greg and we'll ask him what he knows about Prince Philip. Greg, good evening.
Good evening. A sad day. Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, has died aged 99. Astonishing, isn't it? He was born in exactly the same year as both my parents. Something of a reminder to me that had they survived, they would have been 100 this year. Another overlap in terms of dates was I was a year old just before he and Princess Elizabeth married in 1947. They didn't have very long without the great responsibilities that fell to them, because in 1952, Princess Elizabeth's father died, George VI, and she became Queen of England. That put Prince Philip into a strange situation because he never wished to be king, and the Queen acquiesced to his desire to remain a consort without ennobling to become King of England. He therefore took a secondary role as her support, more or less immediately, leaving his career as a naval officer, because do bear in mind, his service in the Navy was very much active service. He was commended for bravery in one campaign and also moved on to notable service, saving his ship in the Sicily landings. He had served with the Navy. He'd had a very strange beginning to his life when, although he was of one of the European royal families, he was born somewhat without pomp and circumstances, believe it or not, on a kitchen table in Corfu in 1921. His mother, when he was 8, was sectioned into an institution as a paranoid schizophrenic. And from then on, he was raised more or less as a privileged orphan. He went to school in Britain, went to Gordonston in Scotland. He went on from there, educated throughout his life until he joined the Navy in Britain. He held the title, should I say, of the Duke of Edinburgh, and he was for some 50 years Chancellor of Edinburgh University. His role with the Queen was as her consort, and in their 73 years of marriage, he became the longest serving consort in the history of British royalty. It must, in fact, probably place him as the longest consort in royalty of any family worldwide. His service was always very sound in support of the Queen, and also had great humility. As the Queen said of him, his duties and his achievements far outstripped what any of us would be aware of, and considerably outstripped what he would be prepared to admit to.
Well, I have to say, Greg, that I've met Prince Philip, albeit over 40 years ago, and I was being presented from him the Gold Duke of Edinburgh Award, and it was at St. James Palace, and it was quite amusing, really, because I was just in the process of being commissioned in the RAF Reserves. So I was wearing my RAF uniform, and Prince Philip walked straight past me. We were all lined up to receive these awards, and he walked straight past me because he assumed I was one of the escorting officers, in other words, those looking after the recipients. And he must have walked about 6 feet. And I shouted at the top of my voice, "Excuse me, sir, you've missed me out." And I could see he was accompanied by an Air Commodore, which is the equivalent of an army brigadier. And the Air Commodore gave me such a stern look for shouting at the Duke of Edinburgh. And it was so funny because he actually came back and apologized to me and then chatted for a good 3 or 4 minutes, when normally he'd give someone sort of 30 seconds at best. So that sort of either humility or fascination on his part that this audacious young man should dare call him out for ignoring him, I think typifies the sort of personality he was.
I'm not sure whether it says more about you than him.
Well, perhaps it does.
I also met him in St. James's Palace, but I really wouldn't lay claim to meeting him as such. I was merely introduced to him as a young man at what had been a girlfriend's wedding, which was an interesting experience because the entire royal family was present and they acted as the host. There are a number of anecdotes I could give you of that particular day, but possibly discretion is the better part of valor, since it was an ex-girlfriend of mine.
I'd agree with that, but what I wanted to ask you particularly is, where does this now leave Prince Harry? Bearing in mind that we've had this royal family fallout with Prince Harry, where does this leave him now? Do you think he's going to head straight back to England? And should he?
I think he is in a position of some extreme embarrassment. He has made something of a fool of himself. Whether we attribute that to Harry for being weak with regard to the total nonsense his wife came out with in that press release that Oprah Winfrey presented, which was bizarre in the extreme, in that it was so bereft of truth or accuracy as to be an embarrassment to all concerned. And I am astonished that Oprah Winfrey has not had neither the courage nor the integrity to apologize for her part in it. That would at least to some degree let Harry off of the hook at what is now a particularly embarrassing time for him, because he is in the terribly difficult position of, does he return for the funeral, or does he effectively cut his ties on a long-term basis with his former regality? I personally think he is in a position that, unless expressly and publicly invited by Her Majesty the Queen, he has made himself, if anything, persona non grata at his own grandfather's funeral.
Well, I take that point, but if I was a betting man, Greg, I would say, and everyone listening to this can note this, he will be at the funeral, come hell or high water, because if he fails to turn up for whatever reason, if he's not invited, the royal family will be condemned. And if he is invited and he doesn't turn up, the British people will not want him back in the United Kingdom ever again.
I don't think many of them do anyway.
Well, I think that would be the absolute seal. Greg, thank you very much. Let's end it there. It was going to be short and sweet this evening. Thank you so much.
I think one important thing from both of us is our condolences to not just the Queen and her immediate family, but people around the world who held this truly great man in some affection.
And I share that equally. Thank you, Greg.
Indeed.
We hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if so, kindly subscribe to our channel and press the bell sign so that you are notified of our videos as and when they are published. And also in the description box below, we place links to certain books, articles and programs which you may find of benefit, and for which we will receive a small commission should you purchase through our link. And this will help support our channel and to enable us to develop it further.